Hey, Brah. Thank you so much for joining us, man. It's a real honor to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, man. It's good to be here.
So tell me, for the audience out there, would you mind telling them a little bit about your background and sort of what you're up to right now?
For sure. Well, it all started, excuse me, it all started kind of when I was in my early teens and I first started getting into the health and fitness information sphere, if you will. It kind of started with me voraciously reading everything I could get my hands on, right? Um, if I was interested about how to get bigger or how to get healthier or how to sleep better or whatever, I would just head to the internet, that huge uh, source of information that everyone has access to. And I would just kind of delve into whatever took my fancy, try it out in my own life. And that kind of built up over several years into like a bit of a passion for human optimization as a whole, I guess. Obviously, as you're a young man growing up, you want to get bigger, you want to get stronger, and that's where it started. But it evolved into something a bit more for me anyway. So I would do a lot of research and all that and reading by myself. And as I came in up to through school, I went to college. I studied a bachelor's and a master's. But that is all kind of just backstory. What I'm doing now is more a relic of that kind of self information retrieval, and that self study. Any question that I had, I would just research myself, and I think you can get a lot out of that kind of by yourself information. And so what I'm doing now was something I've wanted to do for a long time that I never really pursued as such until the last kind of year and a half. It was always stuck in the back of my mind, like I have all this information and knowledge now that I just want to share with people. So it started with the Twitter account where I would kind of summarize and release all my best information in a form that I think translates to the regular person a bit more. Maybe you don't have the time to delve into it like I did over the years. So the essence of what I'm doing now is kind of transcribing all of the stuff that I've discovered over the last, probably about 10 years now, and delivering it into a easily digestible form to try and help people kind of get into or optimize their lives, their sleep. Because man, that's something huge that I didn't even realize. Is like when I was trying to optimize every kind of area of my life, I realized how lacking the average person is. And that's not like, I'm not ragging on anyone. It's just like people don't know how to make their sleep better, and they don't know, or maybe they don't consciously realize how much sleep affects their life, their mood, their body fat, their muscle tone, all of that. And that's just one area. So I kind of saw this mismatch between maybe the relic health advice of the institutions that are around at the moment. I'm not saying the institutions are evil in that sense, but they promote a lot of information that's not really optimal or based on kind of old legacy thinking that doesn't really translate to real life. So I'm trying to kind of fill that gap between what's practical, what works, what's backed up by the science that is there, but also not just myopically focused on any one topic. If something interests me, I want to delve into it. And the Brah Twitter was a way to deliver that to people, and that's transpired into a lot more, I guess. But yeah, that's the whole of it. Producing content, writing, all of that kind of stuff to try and transmit this message of helping people to take their health and other areas of their life into their own hands. And I just want to kind of facilitate that.
I love it, man. Well, for everyone listening, I can't recommend enough your Twitter feed and your Twitter threads. The sort of breaking down, you can tell that it's a ton of information being broken down into very digestible form, which is,
Yeah,
it's like Twitter threads are turning into an art of their own. And, I think you've really got a
definitely.
good grasp on it. And it's sort of amazing what you can learn in just like 5 minutes of scrolling through one thread.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's all very well and good having pages and pages and pages of a scientific journal that, explains the biological processes and what affects what, but most people don't have the time or whatever else to delve into it to that level. So the Twitter thread especially, it's kind of a function of how Twitter's set up. You have, what is it, 280 characters per tweet?
Something like
Um,
that.
yeah, so you really have a limited scope in which to deliver it. And I I usually, what I do is I'll write like a summary of whatever I'm talking about, paragraph each, and then I'll cut each paragraph to a bite-sized tweet. And my aim is for someone that is, browsing Twitter on the way to work, they can see a 3 or 4 tweet kind of summary of a concept, take that away in a digestible format, and then make practical implementations into their own life, rather than having to sit down and knock it all the research out themselves, which is just not practical, and not everyone's going to have the time to do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention, once you usually start going down research rabbit holes, it's not just reading like one paper. It's usually getting a full scope of like what's out there in the fields to really have an idea of what to implement, what's more accurate than other things. And so when you find sort of like a trusted voice on,
Mm,
whether it's Twitter or another social media platform, it's like I can read your threads knowing that you've done that due diligence, or at least assuming
mm.
so, since the results are there from the things that I've been able to implement.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's that there's information itself is all very well and good, but if you have the information but it doesn't translate to anything meaningful in your life, then really how good is that information? It's just kind of rattling around in your head, with no application. So what? So yeah, kind of finding those sources of information, and thank you for saying, that I'm a trusted source or whatever. Um, it's just those people that seem to move the needle in your own life if you listen to what they're saying and seeing implementations from their stuff. So I think that's super important, is like not taking someone's word just because of the title that they have or the position that they hold, because you never know if they might have BS their way into that position. That's an unfortunate kind of what happens in modern society, is sometimes I'd say most people don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and they kind of BS their way into positions, whether they know someone that got them the job or whatever else. They've just been around a long time and they haven't had to upskill. Even people like doctors, and there are obviously great doctors out there and all that, but they go through medical school and they learn the kind of limited scope and framework of the medical school curriculum, and then they practice as a doctor and they don't read anything else for the next 20 years. And that's quite not dangerous, but just, if you don't update the information that you're giving out to people, especially related to health and fitness, when there are improvements and there are kind of revelations each month as such, then you're not going to be able to deliver the most up-to-date information. And if you have the MD after your name, people start to trust you, and that's great. And obviously it takes a huge deal to kind of go through med school. I'm not taking that away from anyone, but it's just an example of some of these positions or positions of authority that we look to in society, that they might not necessarily be completely up to date. Or you go to them, I have trouble sleeping, and they say take the sleeping medication, and then you get stomach problems, so you take a Tums or an antacid to just fix your stomach problems that you're getting from the sleeping medication. Just kind of this treating the symptom
Yeah.
mentality, which I think is pretty pervasive in terms of Western medicine. So that's one of the other things that I try and promote, is if you're taking medication, it's a Band-Aid fix, and you don't want to be on it for any length of time, because your body will get used to it, and you're not really treating the root cause of whatever else is affecting you. So that's something else that I try to consciously get people to engage with as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw a really multiple examples of, people achieving these certain positions, maybe politically, that doesn't seem like they would really qualify for, like during the coronavirus, a number of
Oh
maybe like the
yeah.
health ministers and things like that are, way overweight or look very sickly, or they don't look
The
like the kind of
Belgian, the
people.
Belgian health minister
Yeah.
is the one that always comes to mind. I mean, if anyone looks that up, just
Yep.
a quick Google image, they can see, this person's meant to be advising me on health. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, it's pretty I think it's certainly, worth, or let's say it's not to take away from doctors and credentials and the needs for
Mm,
all those things, but it is under having an understanding of like sort of the systematic flaws. Like you mentioned, a doctor gets their, they might get out into the workforce as a doctor, and maybe never do additional research after that. I'm sure a lot of them probably do try to improve their own skills, but you don't
yeah.
know for sure. So taking their advice offhand may, it could lead to a situation where, again, like you mentioned, is, you're maybe overprescribing medications, or utilizing pharmaceuticals more than you might need to compared to your natural state. And I think that's one of the things that, uh, it seems like a growing movement in general of people that are trying to focus on how to
Mm,
remedy health situations naturally. I know I
yeah.
think of it all the time. I think like, would a caveman need Tums? Like what's
Yeah.
the real issue here that would
Yeah.
is causing this problem?
Yeah, exactly. And the internet kind of facilitates you to be able to do that now. You can find, and don't trust everything you read on the internet. Of course, that's not what I'm saying. But when you have when you do the research and maybe you have a health issue that you're looking into, in general, the cream rises to the crop. You'll see the information pop up. That seems to work for a lot of people. That's the benefit of having things like internet forums, is you can go to internet forums where people will be discussing the exact health issue that you might be having and say, hey, this worked for me. I tried this. And so that's a really good way to kind of frame it. But the thing about kind of natural living and all that is that, at least what I've found, is most health issues, or if it's not a dangerous health issue as such, but just your hair isn't looking that good or healthy, it's like, okay, that's because you're slathering it in shampoo, which is this kind of chemical approximation made up by some big pharmaceuticals company, and you're washing your hair and stripping your hair of the natural oils twice a day, every day for the last 5 years, because you just, I need to wash my hair when I'm in the shower. It's like, you don't. And the shampoo and conditioner is actually taking away from the health of your scalp. So I've recommended a lot of people stop using shampoo and conditioner. It usually takes maybe 1 to 2 weeks for your scalp to kind of get used to not having the oil stripped of it, to rebalance the oil that it produces. But after that period, people usually come back to me and say, hey man, my hair's looking better than ever. It kind of flows naturally. It styles itself almost because of just the natural hair oils that it's meant to produce. And I'll use a bit of coconut oil as conditioner. That's a good tip for anyone that's interested in doing that. But it's one of those things where you're taking away the accepted modern solution or chemical or whatever else it is that is affecting your health in the negative, but you might not necessarily have thought about it because it's, you're just washing yourself or whatever else. But it's that idea of taking away the modern influence and being aware that you're exposing your body to a lot of toxic stuff that you might not have to. You definitely don't have to, and you're going to feel better when you take away all these external influences on your health. Another one would be obviously artificial light, and people have heard about blue light and all that, but I even take it a step further. So first of all, no electronics about an hour and a half, 2 hours before bed, ideally. And I'll have in my room and in my house in the kind of hours before bed is either a candle light or a deep red light. And what that does is kind of prepares your brain for sleep a lot better than looking at electronics. There's a few other reasons why we shouldn't look at electronics before bed, but the main one is just timing your circadian rhythm. So the blue light that comes into your eyes from electronic devices is of the same wavelength or similar than that daylight is, right? You have those blue light wavelengths coming in. So when your brain isn't recognizing that it's like an artificial light source. So your brain is just kind of going, oh, there's a bit of daylight coming in, so let's try and stay awake a little bit longer, or maybe it's not time for sleep yet. So if you're browsing your phone or your laptop right before bed, even TVs, then, or you're watching something in bed, then that's going to really fuck with your circadian rhythm. So that's another thing that I recommend to people as like a first kind of steps to try and renaturalize in a way your body and your brain, is to cut all electronics out like 2 hours before bed, read by candlelight, do some stretching, that kind of thing, to kind of prepare yourself for sleep. And I guarantee that most people will feel a lot more tired earlier if they have trouble sleeping, like, oh, I only get to bed at midnight. It's like, yeah, but you're on your phone until 11:45. Like
Yeah,
all of these
totally.
things which people accept as part of modern life are things you can mostly cut out or do without, and kind of return to a more natural body state and mind state, and you're going to see health improvements across the board.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about how, our current human state, is a product of over 1 million years of evolution in one particular direction, and then you consider, modern technology and how it's just been the past blink of an eye that humans have
Mm,
had access to light, after dark like that.
yeah,
So, and the more that you do that, the more that you try to draw comparisons between some modern amenities to sort of what a natural state would be. I think
yeah.
people, it's kind of alarming to see how many things you could probably cut out or need to reconsider or uh, alter about your habits or lifestyle to get back to that natural state. But it's kind of amazing to see what the results are from that.
Yeah, 100%. The other one that I would say is a big one at the moment is that most people will wake up, maybe it's a little bit dark in the morning, they'll have a shower indoors with their bathroom light, they'll go to work in their car, get to work, be under fluorescent office lighting for 8-9 hours, get in their car, come back, they'll watch TV, and that whole day they haven't actually been exposed outside to natural light the whole day, and they'll do that Monday to Friday for years. And it's just mind blowing to me that, like, of course you're not going to feel good when you're under these artificial light sources. You're not getting outside. You're breathing recycled air. All of these things kind of contribute to, if that's what your major environment is, 80% of your waking life, it's impossible to feel good doing that. So I really recommend people, especially when they first wake up, sunrise, not sunrise as such, but morning sunlight is really good to get into your eyes when you first wake up. Again, it's helping to time that circadian rhythm. So your brain kind of knows, okay, this is when we get up, this is when we need to be active. So let's start firing all the things, all the chemicals behind the scenes that make us feel awake. And if another thing is, if you're getting that morning sunlight, it'll enable your brain to time for sleep as well. So getting that morning sunlight is super important. Throughout the day, on my lunch break, if possible, I'll go outside for my lunch break from work, and I'll pop the shirt off, get as much sun as possible, just go for a half-hour walk or whatever else. But little things like that can really make a difference. And also, the vitamin D side of it as well is super important for testosterone production, for dopamine production, all of these things which contribute to our state of mind in general, that you don't necessarily think, okay, if I need to get some sun, my mood will improve. You don't conceptualize it, or you're not conscious of it on a day-to-day basis. But if you're not getting sun on a regular basis, you're really hindering yourself in terms of your mood, and all the rest of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, you think about, again, like, place yourself, 5,000 years ago, whatever, where you would have lived under the sun for a majority of the day. how our
Yeah.
bodies and our skin is acclimated to that to be able to produce vitamin D, which is, really more than or vitamin D, as you would call it,
Yeah.
which is even more of uh, more than a vitamin, so much as like it's also a
Oh, it's pretty much a hormone.
yeah, right. Yeah. So it
Yeah.
dramatically affects your mood. And,
Yeah.
you consider people used to worship the sun. And now today that seems so completely, it seems it's kind of strange to even consider that. But it's because of how much our modern world, we just have artificial light. We don't need it. It's kind of
Yeah. Well,
perplexing.
without the sun, none of us would be here. None of the planets would be here. We'd all be frozen on a floating rock somewhere. So it really is important to get. I remember when I was studying abroad at a place that had not as much sun as I'm used to here, but I did legit get some kind of seasonal depression, and that's not, it wasn't that bad. But for me, I'm usually a very happy-go-lucky person, and nothing can kind of get me down as such. So when I was kind of moping around and, living in this place where I didn't really realize it at first, I was still getting outside, but because of the cloud and the rain factor, it's not the same as getting pure sunlight on your skin. And I really did notice the difference with kind of just my general mood. I was less motivated to do things and just more prone to kind of wallowing in negative thoughts. So that's something, if people have anxiety or depression, like first thing I would say is like, okay, get outside in the morning, get outside during the afternoon sun, and see how you go from there.
So how do you typically address, because I mean, in order to identify that maybe I'm not feeling so motivated, or my mood is
Mm-hmm.
down, I think there's like a lot of people that just simply don't even have sort of a gauge on where they're at compared to like maybe a baseline state or anything. Do you have
Yeah.
any methods or ideas around how to sort of like start to measure your state and your health and your mindset or mood?
Yeah. So it's all relative, like, you don't know what you're missing out on until you felt like what it is like to be naturally healthy and happy, and have everything, all the levels kind of operating at the right levels. So I would say, just to kind of, start getting out in nature. If you're not exercising, of course exercise, and you'll get a taste of what it feels like. Clean up your diet. A lot of people don't realize that what you eat impacts your gut microbiome. So all the little creatures that live inside your gut, they have a specific role in the body that is heavily tied to neurotransmitter production. So if you're feeding that kind of system inside you with shitty foods like Cheetos and Mountain Dew and all that garbage, then you're going to feel shit as well. And it's like, it's such a double whammy, right? There are so many kind of added factors that go into that. But so your microbiome isn't going to be able to produce the neurotransmitters that it needs to, that make you feel better and make you feel motivated. But also your energy levels from eating the shit food is going to be down. Like you're not getting the vitamins and minerals and other such things that are required by these biological processes to get you kind of running optimally. So I would say to anyone, anyone feels better when they haven't drunk alcohol for a while. Everyone knows what it feels like when they eat better. I don't think people are like, they're not unaware of how to live healthy or eat better, I guess. Like everyone knows that fast food is bad for you as such, but maybe they just need the kind of little push or just a jog to be more conscious of what they're doing and what they're putting into their bodies and what practices they're having. Another one I would say is to limit your mobile phone use. I mean, this is such a huge one that kind of gets accepted by everyone. Everyone's addicted to their phone, and I still use my phone more than I would like to. That's kind of related to being on Twitter and building the Twitter there. So, some of it is unavoidable, but again, a few hours before bed without mobile phone use, you're going to feel a lot better from doing that. So it's all, there are a kind of base level few things you can do for yourself that you're immediately going to notice the difference. to the point where it's going to motivate you to make further changes and go, okay, if I can feel better doing this, if, what's the next step? What's the next thing that I can do? And, all of these things are compounding, because you'll feel better. So you'll make better decisions, and then you'll feel better, and then you'll make better decisions, and just in general and it's all take it a step at a time. Rome wasn't built in a day kind of thing. Just each day do better than the previous day. And over time, as long as you stick to that, and there will be backward steps and things, of course, like in everything, but just overall trying to be more conscious of what you're doing, what you're putting into your body, what negative external sources might be having an effect on your mind state or whatever else, and just removing those negative influences. And that can include relationships as well. If you're kind of have a friend or a relationship in your life that isn't really giving you that much or makes you feel shit all the time, then analyze that as well, and analyze if maybe you need to make a change in that, to just return to kind of some sort of, like just to optimize your health and feeling in general. And I think most people will feel a difference just from that. Most people feel a difference from getting their sleep in check to the point where it's like, oh shit, okay, I don't have to feel tired all day. And when you're not tired, you're not going to be cranky, your work's going to be better. All these things that I think it's a no-brainer for anyone to get into. And once you get a taste of that, it's kind of addictive in a sense. And then you have the motivation and the more energy to kind of develop that from there.
Yeah, I mean, I've found in my own experience, something like working out, sort of becomes like a cornerstone for building additional habits off of. You go to the gym and then you realize that if you want to maximize your results from the gym, you should probably get enough sleep. If you want to maximize your muscle gain or whatever, you need to optimize your diet. To build additional good habits off of one cornerstone habit, can usually help with, taking it one step at a time and then working more and more, getting into, additional supplements that might help, or really just moving, sort of like you said, Rome wasn't built in a day, one step at a time towards that optimized living.
Yeah, for sure. And the gym one, working out is such a big springboard for that. Obviously the benefits of working out itself are innumerable, but what it teaches you is a kind of first-hand experiment in your own body. It's like, if I focus on and commit to doing this regularly, then I improve, and you can see visual improvement. You'll feel better. First of all, you'll have less anxiety from utilizing that physical energy, so the mental energy isn't bouncing around your head and all that. But it teaches you that if you can focus on something and commit to something and repeat an activity, you'll get better and develop in that activity. And then you can take that mindset to anything, whether it's a business venture you want to get into or whatever else, developing public speaking skills. It's like, if you delve into it, you research it, you commit to repeating it day on day on day on day for, in your life, then you can improve at anything. And that's what going to the gym taught me. And that's what I think a lot of people get out of working out, is that, oh shit, I actually can get better at something and develop and all that, as long as I commit the time to it and you become disciplined in whatever area you want to go into.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually can completely agree with you on that. It took for me going to the gym a little bit to start seeing results, to realize that it's like, oh wow, if, with the time, with the energy, you can actually make a visual change. And that, way of that sort of like breaks down some mental barriers for other areas of your life where you're like, oh, I thought I was sort of stuck in this circumstance for my entire life, or I wouldn't be able to grow beyond this point. But once you've sort of been able to prove something, that, all of a sudden those barriers dissolve away.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I'm curious about, or sort of the idea of the modern way of living, and how it relates to not just things that you could remove from your life to, feel more optimized or be in a more natural state. I mean, a lot of the things that you talk about are things that you could add to your life, different supplements or
Mm.
dietary suggestions and things like that. Um, have you like gone through the science of some of the, let's say, like processed foods and what processed, really over processed anything can have on our lifestyles, and or just on our overall health and accumulating toxins in your body?
Yeah, well, the main one that I kind of rail against a lot is like processed foods. If you shift to a whole food basis, only eating kind of ingredients that you can see, like you see an apple, it's going to be an apple. You know that there isn't anything kind of nasty in that. But if you're getting anything from a packet, you just don't know what's been done behind the scenes. And there are food label ingredients and all that, which help. But as far as a general rule, I think to stay away from anything that will be able to sit on a shelf, for weeks on end and be fine and quote unquote edible after 4 weeks. It's like, is that really something you should be putting inside your body at that point? So the main ones is that is kind of pervasive, at least in most processed foods, vegetable oils. So polyunsaturated fatty acids, things like canola oil, soybean oil, vegetable oils, is the kind of generic term that are used in processed foods. But it's unbelievable how pervasive that these oils are in processed foods. It's used as like a shortening. Things are fried in it. That's the main thing that like fast foods use to fry all their stuff in. So
Do you know why these types of oils as opposed to natural oils, or like coconut
yeah,
oil, olive oil?
so coconut oil and olive oil have a higher proportion of saturated fats, but they're also, so the plant oils or whatever that are good for you, like olive oil and coconut oil. So there's kind of a difference in how they're made. So you squeeze an olive, you get the juice of it, the oil of an olive that comes out, right? You squeeze a coconut or smush it down or whatever else the process is, coconut oil comes out. So it's kind of just like the natural juice, if you will, of the plant. But these other oils kind of get created with petroleums and hexanes and all these things that it's like a chemical process that's added on top of, like you can't squeeze, the vegetable oil crops like soy and things and get the same kind of natural oil. You have to have this added layer of chemical processing that goes through it, which then like it's a lot cheaper, and that's why it's used. Like even high-end restaurants will use that because it's cheaper than using butter or olive oil or coconut. And it's super inflammatory for the body. Opens yourself up to metabolic diseases. Like there's a lot of extra calories in there that, all oils and fats obviously have calories in them. So you can be eating something, but if it's slathered in olive oil, not olive oil, in vegetable oils or cooked in vegetable oils, you get this added hit of calories that you might not be aware of, as well as it impacts metabolic processes, right? So the other thing about polyunsaturated fatty acids is that because they're seed oils, they oxidize at a lower temperature than these other oils do. So what that means is when that goes into your body, because our internal temperature is higher than like the soil, they tend to oxidize. And when you get oxidation, that leads to free radical damage, that can lead to cancer, that can lead to all these, inflammatory health problems that I think is, well, I definitely think it's one of the, if not the top reason that we're seeing a lot more heart disease and all these other kind of metabolic diseases in modern society, is that vegetable oil is so widely consumed in all the processed foods and even things like muesli bars. Like, why the fuck do you need to put vegetable oil in muesli bars? Like, it's just nuts and fruit. But lo and behold, check ingredients and you'll see vegetable oils in there. So that's one of the first things that I say to people is like, stop cooking canola oil, stop using these kind of processed chemical approximations of oil use something like a good quality extra virgin olive oil. That can tend to smoke if you're cooking at higher temperatures. So I use ghee, which is clarified butter. Get a nice ghee to cook in as well. But kind of having that rule of no vegetable oils, no soy, no canola, all those things. If you look for those ingredients and you make that lifestyle change, that alone gets rid of a lot of the worse modern foods for you, and you'll feel a lot better from that as well. And you're not going to be eating, even like potato chips and things like that. They're relatively innocuous. You think it's just potatoes or whatever. But if you're regularly consuming that, there's going to be a few carryover health effects that you can avoid by switching to like a whole foods only diet.
Yeah, I mean, I've found that identifying the vegetable oils has been one of probably the biggest like health piece of advice that I've been following recently. And when you realize how many things have it in there, and if you cut those out entirely, that's like the best guiding light for the food that you should be eating. It goes back to the same idea of like, we did not evolve to be able to eat this highly processed food. Our bodies don't know what it's dealing with. And when you look at like, some potato chips, maybe like Doritos, I don't know if they have those over there. They're like, they're
disgusting.
essentially, they're disgusting, but they're chemically engineered to be unbelievably tasty. Right. And so it's sort of one of those things where also, I think a lot of people are not aware of how vulnerable our bodies are to these, highly engineered foods and snacks that are, again, there's a lot of work and a lot of thought that goes into making it the, ultimate experience between the different tastes and, flavor palettes that it hits, and being salty and sweet and all these things, and how vulnerable our bodies are to caving into these, the cravings for these over processed foods, because we never were supposed to evolve to even find these things in nature. And now they're here right in front of you, chemically engineered in every gas station and corner store available.
Yeah, exactly. It's like sugar as such would be something that you come across very rarely in the wild. Things like honey and fruit are really the only sources. And when you get that super hit of sugar in chocolate or any of these other things, it's just not a natural way that your body is exposed to these things. The other thing I'll say about seed oils that I think is important is because the oils that these plants are producing, they produce the oils for protection, as well as to kind of store energy for the germination of the seed. So like any plant or organism, they don't want to be eaten, right? So they have defenses, whether like plants, because they're not moving, they can't, just up and run like any other animal would away from a predator. So they produce these kind of poisonous ways of so what happens is the oils block the digestive enzymes in animals' stomachs. And as you can kind of think, digestion is one of our most basic functions. And everything kind of relates back to digestion. So you're kind of you're eating this shitty food, but it's also coming with this hit that's impacting your digestion of any other good foods that you might be eating. So all of these things, enzymes are needed not only for digestion, but also for production of thyroid hormones, immunity, all of these things that kind of get blocked by these seed oils. But like you're saying about the availability of sugar and things, is we aren't designed to have chocolate and sugar, or soft drinks is a huge one. A lot of people will see weight loss if they just cut soft drinks out alone, whether or not they're conscious of every Coke being like, 300 calories or whatever, because they're just drinking. Is like, there are so many things that we kind of accept in today's world that you can see massive health changes from eliminating as well. But it does require a bit of effort and discipline and all that. And sometimes you'll have to say no to like a cake or whatever at work. That's a big one that I see. You can do it in a way that isn't socially, isn't gonna,
not rude, maybe.
Yeah, not rude. just say, oh no, that doesn't agree with me, and don't be like, ew, no, like what you're eating shit. Like, I think that's a very important point. You don't want to make other people feel bad by your choices, and some people will just take offense to that anyway. Like, oh, well, you don't want to eat this shitty cake that I picked up from the store. You know, that means you think you're better than me, but that's just insecurity and that's just projection. And you have to be aware that that's going to happen sometimes, but kind of be strong in the face of that, and make sure that you're kind of sticking to your own guns in that sense, but not making anyone on purpose feel bad for what they're doing as well. And when you come at it from that kind of place, people are more open, and maybe they'll come to you later after the office work party and be like, oh, hey man, so why don't you eat that? And, you know, why is it that you prepare your own food? Like, I'm interested in that. And I found that if you operate from that kind of place of, yeah, you know, whatever, I just don't want to eat that, I don't want to put that into my body, that a lot of people are more open to the conversation about it, rather than being like, oh, that's disgusting, like you're an idiot for eating that, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to think about how much like social pressure in general relates to health. You know, we talked earlier about doctors and you know, just sort of being a figure of authority, and how that
Mm.
naturally sort of like makes it hard to go against that grain if you know, they're widely accepted as a figure of authority. If you're in one of those social situations, you know, an office party or whatever, where you know, it's sort of expected that you indulge in whatever the processed food is, or even, you know, just being able to you know, just go against guidelines. You talked about you know, using or consuming real butter, as opposed to, you know,
Mm.
like there was a large trend to like make margarine seem
I
better, which
can't
is,
believe it's not butter.
yeah, I can't believe it's not butter, as if that's healthier. And you know, there's this stigma out there about fats, and you know, sort of like the way that a lot of people sort of default way of thinking about some health issues. You know, they get
Mm.
influenced by some figure of authority, and how hard it can be for people to sort of swim in the opposite direction of the current there.
Yeah, that's maybe a larger issue of going against societal conditioning, which is, it has far-reaching effects, not just to health and fitness, but kind of what you want to do with your life. It's that grander issue of, you get told that you need to study this thing. Your parents kind of push you into a certain career because they obviously they want the best for you, and a lot of the time the advice coming from parents is out of love. You know, that they want you to do well, and they want you to be secure and safe, and go through the kind of, at least what they think is the best path of action for your life. But at the end of the day, that's not always what you should be doing, whether it's just an area that you're not interested in, whether it's a career that might have been good in their day, but now you're spending years studying, paying money to study, when you could just be, you know, starting a business or working straight away. That if they think it's the best thing for you, they're going to say, yep, you should do this, you should do that. Society as a whole more so says, you know, you've got to be stable, you got to have a good income, and you know, work 9 to 5, all these kind of things, which are pushed by a society, that might not necessarily work out for you and your goals. And I think that's one of the important things that people need to do is analyze what they're doing day to day, and their kind of career, or what they're working towards, and really think like, am I doing this for me, or am I doing this because of the pressures that I might not be consciously aware of, that people think it's the best thing for me to do. Because otherwise you're going to end up, you know, 20 years down the line, having done this thing that everyone says you should do, never consciously being aware that maybe you don't want to do it, and you don't want to be stuck there forever. And the earlier you kind of analyze that thinking and break out of that conditioning, the better, because you're going to be able to make decisions that lead to your own personal happiness and your own personal version of success, which is another thing that I think you should sit down at some point just with a notebook. Doesn't have to be this huge thing, but just kind of see, what do I want in life? what's bringing happiness to my life now? What am I interested in? How can I work towards spending more time in the day doing those things that make me happy? And that's the lifestyle change as a whole that I push people towards. And obviously you can't do things that make you happy all the time, every single day. But you can set your life up so that you're not doing things just for other people, or, you know, spending time with people that you actually want to spend time with, rather than being stuck in an office with people you don't really like just because you're making money and all that. And obviously you need money to survive. I'm not saying quit your job straight away, but always definitely be working or researching or spending time to get to this other track where you can say that, you know, I've formulated this lifestyle for myself and I enjoy doing these things, and these things are going to bring me happiness. They're going to bring me health. Hopefully they'll bring me wealth as well. But yeah, I think it's very important to kind of sit down and define in words, in writing, what would success look for me 10 years down the line, a perfect day kind of thing. And how do I get there? And each day, how do I make the changes in my life to kind of get to that spot down the line, rather than just, you know, going through the motions of life just because you get up every day, you go to work and you never stop. Because if you do that over and over and over again, you're going to be 10 years down the line and you're like, shit, well, where did that go? You know, I haven't actually made any steps towards what I actually really want, because I've just been unconscious in my living of my life and not really analyzing where I'm going.
Yeah, it's some sort of waking up process is needed to sort of get out of sort of that social stream. And
Yeah.
I can totally second what you said about just sitting down with a notepad and writing it out. It's really one of the most powerful exercises you can possibly do, is just to just think for just, you know, just a few moments about what you actually want at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And it's kind of remarkable to think of, you know, how few people take the time to even conceive of that, you know, and they get just,
Yeah.
you know, sort of swept downstream.
Yeah. For
Where do
sure.
you, I mean, it seems like it's sort of a common theme, both in health and, or like physical health and mental health, to be able to, you know, go against the grain and to some extent, to sort of question the societal norms, to,
Mm.
you know, sort of measure things for yourself. I mean, do you just, you know, you personally, do you feel optimistic towards the future where more people are able to do that, or where do you see things headed right now?
Well, that's a tough one. I think you're always going to get the majority of people who are either too scared or too unaware or not conscious of the mainstream society and information that's given out. And so they will blindly follow the herd. I think that the structures are in place now with the internet, especially, that anyone that does feel that kind of nagging, like, maybe something's not right with this, there is the capacity for anyone to just get on their phone or computer and, you know, really delve into what else might be out there. I'm optimistic for that reason, because anyone that has that kind of inclination can improve their own life at the touch of a button by researching things. But unfortunately, you are going to get, I think, the majority of people who just go through the motions and take it as it's given to them. I think there are ideas and values that we should try and promote in general, you know, like healthy living, healthy eating. It's going to lead to a healthy mind, which in general, if people are happier and healthier, they're going to make better decisions. So as a whole, your community and society is going to be healthier and work better because of that. So I think it's important for anyone that makes these changes and sees the benefit in their own life to promote that to as many people as possible. And that's not to become like a, come on, dude, you got to eat healthy, like that annoying guy. I think everyone makes that that mistake, or at least in some part, when they start eating healthy and start doing better in their life. They just want to share it. They go, oh shit, I didn't realize it was possible to feel this good. And, you know, you don't have to be lethargic your whole day. And, you know, I feel much more optimistic and more energy to do things and pursue things. You want to just share that with people. And sometimes it can come across as like preachy or whatever. So I think it's important to avoid that. At the end of the day, the best way to influence the people around you is to live your own life in a way that inspires others. So when other people see you looking healthier and looking better and feeling fitter and having the extra energy to do other things, they go, oh shit, like he's doing well. And then they'll be curious to ask. And you always got to present the information in a non-judgmental way and just say, yeah, look, man, this is what I've been doing. This is why I feel better. Hopefully you've understood behind the scenes why you feel better, so you can explain it to people. That always helps. But I am optimistic because, you know, this movement on Twitter and all the other, like, it is a small microcosm of society. It's not everyone, and usually it's people that are interested in this self-improvement world kind of come into this side of Twitter. But the ideas are permeating to other areas of society, and I definitely think it's part of our responsibility to just promote that and live through the values that you discover are better for you in terms of your health and mental health and social health in general. And that's the only real way to show others that, you know, there is another way and there is other information out there, and to kind of show people that it's possible.
What words would you use to describe that movement that you're referring to? Because I'm definitely sensing a similar thing, seeing like a lot of similar sort of pockets of information and sort of like a shared, maybe bandwidth or
Yeah,
mindset that people are starting to have. How would you define that movement?
I don't know. When you define things, put labels on it, it kind of, you know, it has certain connotations you might not necessarily mean, but
Yes, true.
there's like, it's definitely an adoption of extreme personal responsibility and saying this area of my life is not the way I want it to. Part of that is my fault. Part of it could be bad luck, but even if it is bad luck, it's still up to you to change it, you know? So as far as the movement, I guess it's just people that are fed up with the paradigm of how this Western society is going, and you're seeing rising suicide rates, you're seeing rising disease rates across the board. So at some point you got to go, the thinking person kind of goes, maybe there's more to it, and maybe there's something else that I could be doing, because what we're doing at the moment is kind of a downward trend. As far as the label, I'm not sure, but it's definitely tangible. I definitely feel it. You definitely feel it. And I think we're going to see a more development of that into the mainstream public consciousness, hopefully, over the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how it sort of manifests, because it seems like, we're definitely in the craziest time to ever be alive in so many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about very early on here about, just the information that's out there and how you can sort of accumulate all the information about whatever you're interested in, and sort of this weird place where the internet is at, where, on one hand, there's more information at our fingertips than ever before. And on the other hand, there's more people vying for your attention and for your mental capacity than ever before. And so it's sort of this, a very challenging tool to work with the internet. But on the other hand, it could be something that sort of can make a movement like this even possible.
Yeah, it's like a blessing and a curse, right? You
Totally.
have access to all the information, but when you also have access to all the information, you have access to all the bad information and the negative social media that does impact your mental health as a whole. But I think it's more important to actively curate what information and content you're consuming in general. Don't go on Twitter and say, oh, I want to go on the self-improvement Twitter and pretend that you're really making changes in your life, when at the end of the day you're just sitting on your phone scrolling through content and reading and consuming a few hours a day, where you could be consuming 30 minutes of material, when you otherwise, on the bus or something, you can't really be doing anything else. But then actually implementing and producing content yourself, I think is super important. Like, you can't just scroll through Twitter or these other things and then not do anything about it, because then you're just as bad as the people that are, watching stupid Instagram videos of people falling over and just that kind of base level dopamine hit shit content that a lot of people get stuck into, you know?
Totally. I think you nailed it with the words actively curate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it really does come down to that. I noticed that's really one of the beautiful things about Twitter is you can really filter your feed based off the people that you're following versus Instagram
Yes.
is just mindlessly scrolling. And it's beyond the point of, really being anything that you control. Ever since they sort of stopped, displaying things chronologically, I think that's the same case for
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram, where now it's, completely algorithm driven, which means
Yeah.
they're, specifically targeting content to you based off of, whatever factors that we're
What you've
not aware
clicked
of.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what you clicked
Usually
on, maybe
hot
what you just said
chicks.
out loud. Yeah, usually hot
Yeah.
chicks, aesthetic things,
Yeah.
violent things that are just naturally going to draw you in, and sort of it's similar to like the the Doritos thing, where it's like it's highly engineered to to work with our primitive sort of like primate bodies. It's like the same
Yeah.
thing. Social media is heavily
There's
engineered.
teams of scientists whose sole job it is to keep you addicted to that app so that you're spending more time, so you have more chance of seeing the ads, so that they can charge more for the ads. And it's really important to be aware of that. And if something is free, you are the product, which they can sell. And there is no free lunch. There is connotations to all the content that you consume. So being aware of that and actively curating, and if you are constantly scrolling, just fucking stop. It's relatively easy. Like, how do I get off my phone? How do I, blah, blah, blah. It's like, just stop, just put it down, put it in airplane mode, and concentrate on the task at hand. I made a tweet about this the other day, is that a lot of the reason that people get ideas or thoughts or revelations come to them in the shower, right? Everyone's experienced that. They're in the shower, they're just relaxing, and they go, oh shit, shower thoughts. It's because your phone's not there. The computer's not there. Hopefully you're not on your phone in the shower. I'm sure some people are, stick their hand out of the water and still scroll in the shower. But it's the only time of day your brain doesn't have the constant input or whatever else. And even if it's not social media, it's text from your friends, it's whatever else, notifications. The red notification bubble that appears on apps is designed to be contrasting to the color of the app, and the background of your phone to be as eye-catching as possible. All of these things which drag you in. So another thing with that I recommend is to turn off all notifications for all of your social media. That way you're not getting the ding, those annoying noises, which your brain then goes, oh shit, we got another thing to check. And then you're distracted from whatever else you're doing. So notifications off, silent mode. Another great one is to go into the accessibility settings of your phone, and you can enable the black and white color filter. And what that does is obviously it turns everything on your phone screen to shades of black and white. And that immediately reduces the level of dopamine that your brain is getting from these notifications and from the algorithm driven content on your phone, so that you kind of get a little bit of a break. It kind of dulls the excitability of the phone. So over time, you naturally check it less and less. And coupled that with kind of getting rid of notifications, you don't have to become a recluse in that sense, but whenever you use your phone, have an active purpose. It's okay, I'm going to check Twitter because I want to respond to this guy that messaged me, or just, read a little bit, 10 minutes or so, and then I'm going to put my phone away, not have a notification, bing, bing, go off. And then you've been controlled in a sense to check your phone and open it up. And those are just a few things that I do to kind of make sure that I'm using my phone rather than the phone using you.
I love the black and white one. I'm definitely gonna try that one out. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Yeah, really. And it's just crazy how much we have to dull these modern, whether it's technologies or just options available to us to tune into that more natural, just way of living, and to have more control over your own mind.
It is. It's a constant assault, really.
It's a battle.
It is like the thing that gets me is seeing kids with iPads from
Oh my
2 years
God.
old. Like, that's so sad to me. And luckily I was kind of the last generation where, I had a smartphone at the start of, I think it was, mid high school.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then you notice the difference. Like, my sleep went to shit because I was messaging people until the early hours of the morning. Otherwise, just that was the first kind of realm of having your own entertainment system at home and things like that. But it's even worse now because kids are getting it effectively from the womb, because people don't want to engage with their kids, or they don't want to do things outside, and it's easy to just give your kid the iPad. And man, when I see that, I cry a little bit on the inside, because I
True.
know that they're being conditioned, and having those reward pathways put through the electronics from such an early age, that it would be so hard to kind of break that later on. And whenever you see a group of kids that are young teenagers out and about now, they're all head down, walking around with their phones. Everyone's recording everything all the time, and it just must be, it's not good. It's
Yeah,
not
and
good.
not
And
to mention we don't know the side effects of where this is going to lead that whole generation of kids that are growing up on these devices.
oh
Uh,
man,
it's like the cigarettes of our time, truly.
oh,
Um,
100%. I think it's
if
probably
not
going to be
worse.
even worse. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, it's one thing to have something that dramatically affects your physical health, but when you have something that this is, dramatically affecting your mental health, especially kids, their brains are still they have so much development left to do. To give them these, hyper stimulating devices is pretty crazy. So it's like the
Yeah.
reward pathways are paved with marketing. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. The marketing is important to mention, because the other thing is, like, yes, they're addicted to the devices, whatever, but when they're on the devices all the time and using apps like Snapchat and Instagram and all the rest, is that those platforms get a certain worldview, or only certain information gets presented to them, or pushed to those users. So you're having a small group of companies that are obviously enormous now, YouTube as well, that they get to deliver their own version of reality, when, if that's the only reality that you're consuming 80-90% of your day, then you have an entire generation of people that are going to only have really been experiencing information that has been curated for them and approved for them, and as part of a corporate worldview, which I think is not related, and it's not representative of the real world. So all of that is kind of another layer of it that is going to be that kind of conditioning, another level of conditioning that is going to be hard to break later on.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting really creepy now. I mean, there's some like digital movies that have been edited. Parts of it have been edited, and it's sort of like, well, I bought the original movie here. I didn't expect to get some sort of like Amazon edit out of this film.
Yes. Yeah.
And the more things transition to electronic versions, the less control we have over the content in there. Like this sort of
Yeah.
1984 reality can really can be even worse than the book described. If we had all of our books were electronic, you know, you,
Yeah.
you couldn't even.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
When
You
you
couldn't
get
control it.
when you get companies that are the only source of, like, for instance, YouTube is, there are
It's a
other
monopoly.
video providers. It's a monopoly. And when you have a monopoly, whether or not there's some evil group of people on the board of YouTube, which I don't think is always the case, or necessarily the case, I don't think the individuals are actively saying, we need to condition the youth and all that kind of thing. But just by nature of corporations, everyone is acting within their own position. They don't want to lose their own job. And what you get is this kind of hive mind where the corporation acts as its own thing, and delivers its own kind of message with no real end inside of that, because they keep on getting bigger and they keep on monopolizing the content that gets out, and they can cut content that doesn't fit their worldview. And then if that's the only content that people are consuming, not allowing certain books to be sold on the only bookstore. And I think we're seeing a kind of magnification of that through the COVID-19 world is like everyone's moving to streaming more because they can't leave their house, so they're watching more Netflix and all the rest of it. And we're kind of seeing it coalesce into some hyper concentrated form where everyone has to order from the same place, you know, get groceries delivered from Amazon. And you can only have to look at Jeff Bezos's net worth to see how he's kind of benefited from this lockdown situation. And I think it's super important that people are aware of that and maybe kind of implement things like, okay, try and buy locally as much as possible. You know, I buy things through Amazon sometimes when it's impossible to find anywhere else, and, you know, they have a good service and all the rest of it. But if you can, you know, support the local shops in your area and make sure that you're not just mindlessly ordering from one company and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, to touch on what you said before with, you know, like there's like as if there would be some sort of like evil cabal of people, you know,
Yeah.
at the top of any of these companies. It's like that saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You know, it's not even so much that these people are trying to create any sort of like, you know, creepy dystopia or anything. It's just that the nature of a large organization and the shifting of accountability and trying to do the right thing is not always possible, and we're not always able to deliver on that. And it doesn't take, you know, many mistakes to lead us into a really dark area.
Yeah, and I think that's why, you know, the book 1984, we can look at it and say, oh shit, that's actually happening right now. You know, it's not this fictional thing anymore. And I think it was so poignant and relevant because it's almost just an analysis of the natural course of action when corporations do get bigger and society does get better and technology kind of develops. In that sense, it's like a natural progression of how these power structures are set up and how that can influence society as a whole. And you really have to be aware of that and try and break out of that as much as possible in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy because I think it all comes back to, you know, what we were talking about originally, like to be able to break out of this, you know, over commercialized world, or this, you know, sort of over programmed reality is, you know, to focus on the small things, like just getting away from the basic advice about things, you know, getting out into the sunlight, you know, do just, it's like sort of just into nature and you know, appreciating what technology can do for us, but not letting it trample, you know, our natural state and our natural happiness that we should be able to experience.
Exactly. It's a tool, right? And if you're using a tool in a means to your own ends, then that's great. But you always have to be aware that the tool you can spend too much time doing it, and if it's not a productive use of it, then just get rid of it. You know, get rid of TikTok. I don't think that's I don't think there are really any benefits to that, especially if you're scrolling through it. But using technology as a tool, like technology as a whole, I think has been a benefit. It would be good if we could just cap technology here, right? Like we have internet.
I know, right?
We can call people across the side of the world, and, you know, being able to pick up your phone and FaceTime your grandma who's the other side of the world is amazing, and is, you know, all the credit to the people that have created FaceTime and things like that. I think that's important. And, you know, who wants to still be stuck in sending a letter and waiting months for a response and things like that? You know, there are ways to utilize the technology and see the benefits of it without having it control your life and without it impacting you, at least only in a negative way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's kind of a scary thought to consider that, you know, maybe we're just stuck in this motion of technology because, you know, where we're at might not be currently sustainable. So it's like you know, it's like it's hard to justify staying in the same place technologically. It's like, oh, we could use some more medical innovations or more energy you know, like energy optimizations and you know, it's like sort of a never ending need for more and more. But yeah, certainly I think it just goes to appreciating where we're at today and trying to utilize the tools to the most responsible degree possible.
100%.
Well, Soul Brah, man, this has been phenomenal. I really appreciate you letting me pick your brain here and ask you all these questions and for you to share all this information.
Hey man, thanks for having me. I appreciate everyone listening. Yeah, it's been great so far. I'm sure we'll do it again down the line.
Yeah, I'd love to, man. And for everyone out there listening, would you mind telling them where they can find you and all platforms and such?
Yeah, sure. So Twitter is Solbrah. That's SOLBRAH. I have my website, solbrah.com, spelt the same. And obviously Instagram is real Solbrah. I know we're talking shit about Instagram, but if you're interested in my content, follow me. Don't scroll through it all day. I don't want to encourage that, but yeah, if you're interested in all that, I'm on social medias. So check those out. Give me a follow and yeah.
Cool, man. And before we wrap it up for good, do you have any final words or asks or requests or anything from the audience?
Not really. I'd just say, maybe try and implement a few of the things that I've talked about. I guarantee that they'll help you in your life. And if you have any other further questions, feel free to DM me. I'm pretty active on Instagram DMs. So if, any questions at all, I don't mind helping out with you. And that's the aim of the game with what I'm doing with this Solbrah thing, is to try and help as many people and help people take control of their physical health, their mental health as a whole. So yeah, just in general, try and implement those things and see if they work for you and go from there.
Excellent, man. Well, thank you again. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, brother.